The rooftop restaurant glittered above the city, like a crown of lights. Music drifted through the air, soft and expensive laughter echoing from polished tables where the rich gathered to feel important. Among them sat Javier Cruz's Billionaire hotel. Tycoon, confident, charming, and proudly arrogant, he loved to test people, especially those who served him, to remind them exactly who he was. At his table, a group of foreign investors laughed at his jokes as he sipped his wine. A waitress approached, her tray steady, her smile gentle. Her name tag read Isabella. She spoke politely. "Good evening, gentlemen. May I take your orders?" Javier looked up, his dark eyes filled with mischief. He leaned back, whispering to his friends in Spanish, "Mira esta chica. Ni siquiera entiende lo que dice, solo sonríe para las propinas. Look at this girl. She doesn't even understand what she's saying. She just smiles for tips." The men chuckled quietly, but Isabella's smile didn't fade. She finished noting their orders, then looked directly at Javier. Her tone calm and fluent, her accent perfect. "Disculpe, señor, pero entiendo cada palabra. Y lo que usted acaba de decir no muestra riqueza sino falta de clase." "Excuse me, sir, but I understand every word, and what you just said doesn't show wealth, only lack of class." The laughter at the table died instantly. His friends stared at her in shock. Javier froze, the smirk slipping from his face. Isabella continued, switching back to English, her voice steady. "Would you prefer I take your order now? Or would you like a moment to remember your manners?" The silence that followed was thick. No one dared to breathe. The investors exchanged looks, embarrassed. Javier finally cleared his throat, his voice quieter than before. "We'll order now, thank you." She nodded politely and walked away, leaving behind the stunned billionaire, who for the first time in years had no words as she disappeared into the kitchen. One of the investors muttered, "Ella tiene fuego." She's got fire. Javier couldn't disagree. For the first time, someone had matched him, not with money or power, but with dignity and words he understood better than he wanted to admit. The night dragged on, but Javier couldn't shake her words from his mind. Every conversation sounded distant, every laugh hollow. His friends kept talking about deals and profits, but all he could think about was that calm, unshaken voice that had just called him out in front of everyone. He had built an empire teaching people to fear his opinion, and yet a waitress had silenced him with nothing but truth. When the dinner ended, he excused himself. Early, ignoring his guests' surprised looks, he walked down to the kitchen, following the faint sound of plates and laughter. Among the staff, he found her there, tying her apron. She noticed him immediately, her posture straight, her eyes cautious. "Sir, we're closed to guests down here," he said softly. "I'm not here to eat." She folded her arms. "Then what do you want?" He hesitated. For the first time unsure how to speak. "I wanted to apologize." Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't move closer. "You don't owe me anything, Mr. Cruz." He shook his head. "I think I owe you more than I can say." She raised an eyebrow. "Really? Because most men like you think humility is bad for business?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe that's why I've been losing something more important than money for years." She studied him quietly, unsure whether to believe him. He gestured to an empty stool. "Mind if I sit?" She sighed a little, then nodded. He sat down awkwardly in a room full of noise and warmth, something he hadn't felt in years. "I used to speak Spanish every day. Growing up," he said, "it reminded me of home. But somewhere along the way I started using it to make myself feel above people, instead of closer to them." She looked at him, surprised. "You remembered where it came from?" He nodded softly. "I did tonight because of you." She smiled slightly, the kind that carried both forgiveness and warning. "Maybe it's time you used it the right way again," he chuckled. "Maybe you could teach me how." She shook her head. "Not my job to teach respect, sir. You just have to want it." He left that night with her words heavier than the sky above his hotel. For the first time, the arrogant billionaire didn't feel powerful. He felt human, and that feeling scared him more than failure ever had. Days passed, but Javier couldn't stop thinking about her. He'd built his life around control, power, and image, yet somehow the calm defiance of a waitress haunted him. More than any business loss, he tried to forget it, but her words echoed in every meeting. Wealth doesn't show class respect, does each time he heard someone in his company speak down to a worker. He saw himself through her eyes and the reflection disgusted him. A week later he returned to the restaurant, but this time without his entourage. He wore a simple shirt, no watch, no arrogance. When he walked in, the manager nearly panicked. "Mr. Cruz, we didn't expect you," he smiled gently. "I'm not here as a guest, I'm here to see someone." They led him to the back where Isabella was setting tables for the evening. Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't stop working. "What brings you back?" "Sir," he said quietly, "maybe I came to remember how to speak again." She frowned, unsure what he meant. He continued, "You were right that night. I've spent years believing respect was something I could buy, but you showed me it's something I owe." She looked at him carefully. "Are you saying you changed because of one conversation?" He smiled. "Maybe one truth spoken by someone brave enough to say it." He took a slow breath and added, "I'd like to offer you a position on my team, not as a favor, but because you understand people in a way most of my executives don't." She blinked, shocked. He nodded. "I need someone to train our staff to handle communication and culture between branches. We operate in 7 countries, and none of my managers know how to connect the way you do." She hesitated. "Why me?" Javier smiled. "Because you don't see titles, you see people. That's the one thing money can't teach." She studied him for a long moment, then said softly, "I'll think about it." He nodded. "That's all I ask." And as he left, she called after him, "One condition." He turned curious. "What's that?" She smiled. "No one works for you, everyone works with you." He laughed quietly. Deal. Months later, the change in his company was impossible to miss. Staff who were once terrified now greeted him with genuine smiles. Isabella became the voice of the new training division, and her lessons transformed not just the culture, but Javier himself. He often sat in the back of her seminars listening as she spoke, to rooms full of managers saying respect isn't language, it's behavior. At the next annual conference, Javier took the stage and said to his entire company, "I learned my greatest business lesson, not from a billionaire, but from a waitress who reminded me that the most fluent language in the world is kindness." The room erupted in applause. Isabella smiled from the front row, quietly proud. After the event, he walked over and said softly, "You still make me speechless." She grinned. "Then I guess you finally learned to listen." He smiled back. "Maybe listening was the language I needed all along." If this story made you smile, share it with someone who needs a reminder that accidents can turn into beautiful beginnings.